So, the post-Endgame MCU era begins with Spider-Man Far From Home, the follow-up to 2017's Spider-Man Homecoming. I have to say, given how much of a major cinematic and indeed pop culture event that Endgame was, I think Disney/Marvel really should have waited a full year before releasing another MCU movie. Everything was building to the monumental Thanos showdown in that film, and many of the franchise's long-standing characters were given their send-offs, and it was a huge exclamation point conclusion. But now we have another film released less than 3 months later. Now, obviously, it makes sense from a financial point of view. The studio wants a summer blockbuster for 2019, but I honestly think that Phase 3 should have ended with Endgame, the name being suggestive of closure, after all. Instead, Spider-Man Far From Home is the last film in Phase 3 of the MCU for some reason, rather than serving as the first film of Phase 4, which I think it would have been more suited to being. The film follows on from the events of Endgame with plenty of acknowledgements paid to what happened, most notably the death of Tony Stark and how that's affected the world and indeed Peter Parker's life. So in many respects, Spider-Man Far From Home feels a little bit like an epilogue to Endgame, explaining how humanity has learned to deal with the fact that half the population was snapped out of existence only to return 5 years later, an event that's now referred to as the blip. I generally liked how this was dealt with. One character remarks how weird it is to return to find out that his younger brother is now older than he is. Anyway, after an opening teaser with Nick Fury and Maria Hill investigating a giant storm creature in Mexico before encountering the character of Quentin Beck, we jump to New York, where Peter and his school friends are getting their lives back on track. Their school restarts the academic year for the kids who've returned since the blip, and Peter and his classmates are about to go on a school trip to Europe for several weeks, and he believes that this will be the perfect opportunity to tell MJ how he feels about her. Happy shows up to tell Peter that Nick Fury is looking for him, but Peter decides to ignore his calls and ghost him instead. Ultimately, all Peter wants is to have a regular life as a school kid. Peter also wants to use the trip as an excuse to escape the pressure he feels as Spider-Man to take up the mantle of his mentor, Tony Stark. The film is paced very well, thanks in part to the frequent location changes that offer plenty of visual variety. While in Venice, one of the elementals show up, giant extra-dimensional beings that possess the power of natural forces: wind, water, earth, and fire. It's here that Quentin Beck arrives, a powerful superhero who later goes by the nickname Mysterio. He fights alongside Peter to defeat the creature. Later, it's revealed that he's working with Nick Fury and Maria Hill to track down and defeat the elementals who've destroyed Beck's world. He claims to be from an alternate version of Earth, from another dimension. Fury gives Peter Tony Stark's glasses, which provide him with access to an artificial intelligence system called Edith, which stands for Even Dead, I'm the Hero. With Edith, Peter can access Stark Industries' technologies and weapons. This is certainly a huge responsibility that Tony Stark has left Peter, and Peter feels the tremendous weight of pressure on him. Nick Fury is determined to find out if Peter is up to the challenge of stepping up to try and fill the void left by Tony and fulfill his potential. When Peter refuses to get involved, Fury basically hijacks the school trip and has his people reorganize their travel itinerary to send them to the cities where the next elemental attack is going to take place. While all of this is going on, the B-plot concerns Peter's ongoing pursuit of MJ, with some predictable yet entertaining comedic moments thrown in along the way. While in Prague, the fire elemental attacks, and Peter/Spider-Man fights alongside Mysterio to defeat it. Later, Peter transfers control of Edith to Mysterio, deciding that he would be more worthy of it. Long story short, it turns out that these elemental attacks were all faked. Beck isn't from an alternate dimension. He's a former Stark Industries employee, and he's working with several other disgruntled ex-Stark employees. They've been using drone weapons with holographic projectors to simulate the attacks. The drones are more than capable of just projecting holograms. They're equipped with weapons that can cause widespread damage, which is all very useful when you're trying to create an Avengers-level threat to a major world city. When MJ and Peter discover one of the damaged projectors, Peter realizes he's made a massive mistake by handing Edith over to Beck. While trying to get a hold of Fury to explain everything to him, Peter is captured by Beck and forced to fight a series of mind-bending illusions before escaping and getting hit by a train. The nightmarish illusion sequence is very long and drawn out in my view, and could have easily been cut in half. Then there's a sequence that takes place in the Netherlands, where Peter wakes up in a jail cell, and it just felt really unnecessary. About 10 minutes could have been shaved off the runtime of this film, and I don't think much would have been lost. Anyway, Happy shows up in a Stark jet and takes Peter to London, where Beck is planning his next elemental hoax. While they're on the jet, they have a heart-to-heart about missing Tony, and it's the predictable point of the film where the hero has to deal with the emotional implications of everything that's going on in the story before he discovers his inner strength and goes off to fight the final battle. Tom Holland is really fantastic as Peter Parker, and he's growing more and more into the role in my view. I like this interpretation of Spider-Man quite a lot, and generally I also think this film has a wonderful cast of characters. Zendaya and Holland have solid on-screen chemistry as MJ and Peter Parker. It's a very endearing budding romance between the two of them, and they carry off the script very well. Happy provides Peter with some Stark tech to help him design and build a new Spider-Man suit, which must be the fourth one that he's worn in this movie. It was great to have Happy in this film. I actually think his role was essential, as he provided Peter with a level of emotional support that no one else could. Given that Happy was Tony's bodyguard and friend, he feels a sense of responsibility to look out for Peter in a time when they're both still grieving the loss of Tony. The fact that Happy is also romantically involved with Aunt May just further makes him a kind of surrogate father figure to Peter. They reach London and Peter's friends are in trouble because obviously MJ and Ned know that Beck is faking the elemental attacks and Beck is planning on killing them to tie up any remaining loose ends. Suffice to say, Peter defeats Beck after disrupting the holographic projectors and regaining control of Edith, ordering her to make the drones stand down. Peter and MJ finally reveal their feelings for each other and they all return to New York. However, in the mid-credit scene, there's a news report broadcast in the city on a giant screen, which is presented by the Daily Bugle's J. Jonah Jameson. Interestingly enough, this version of Jameson is played by J.K. Simmons, who also played Jameson in the Sam Raimi Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, which I think was a very cool cameo. Anyway, Jameson shows some leaked footage from the London attack, which Beck edited in such a way to make Spider-Man look like the bad guy, and he also reveals that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. As shocking as this may be for a moment, and of course this will no doubt have implications for Peter's life, it ultimately isn't that much of a big deal in the world of MCU superheroes, because everyone knew that Steve Rogers was Captain America, that Natasha Romanoff was Black Widow, that Tony Stark was Iron Man, etc. Secret identities don't seem all that important these days, and Spider-Man was really one of the last to have a secret identity that he was protecting. One thing that doesn't really work for me is the idea of Peter being expected to try to fill the void left by Tony Stark. Peter is, after all, only a 16-year-old high school kid. It doesn't seem all that earned, believable, or even necessary. Anyway, the post-credit scene is just ridiculous. As it turns out, Nick Fury and Maria Hill were actually portrayed by Skrull shapeshifters the entire film. We see the return of Ben Mendelsohn and Sharon Blynn as Talos and Soren from Captain Marvel. They transform back to their true forms, and Talos contacts the real Nick Fury, telling him that he has to come back. The real Fury is actually relaxing on a Skrull spaceship. This scene is obviously played for laughs, but it's totally unnecessary, and it really just feels like a cheap trick to try to surprise the audience. But it's a twist that doesn't work, as it's so completely out of left field. You're led to believe that you've been watching the real Nick Fury and Maria Hill the entire movie, only to find out that it's not really them at the end. It's a bizarre moment that undermines the presence of Nick Fury and Maria Hill in the movie. I really don't like this conclusion, and the question is, will this be something that will be used again as a contrivance sometime in the future? Anyway, Spider-Man Far From Home is genuinely a solid addition to the MCU, and a film I look forward to watching again. The Mysterio twist in the middle of the film is actually quite clever, and Jake Gyllenhaal makes for a compelling and memorable villain. I think this is a big improvement over the rather forgettable and lackluster Spider-Man Homecoming. I liked the film's tributes that were paid to the Avengers who had passed away recently, especially the sensitivity and reverence given to the franchise's most important and seminal character, Tony Stark. The film deals with his death in a way that's respectful and poignant, while also not falling into melancholy and gloom. The film doesn't feel overshadowed by Tony's death. I still don't think the MCU will enjoy the same level of success over the next 10 years as it did in its first 10 years, but for now, Spider-Man Far From Home proves that the franchise remains in rude health. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.